Start in anytime you want. Here's the
Okay.
agenda over here. I have on the screen over here.
Okay, and who do we have here?
So who's in the meeting right here?
So we have, I'm counting quorum.
Yeah, Marlene, you've been keeping track of quorum?
I only saw one, which would be Carol, come in as far as
Well,
commissioners.
Scott's here, and who else is here?
Let's see.
Yeah, you and Scott. So let's
Yep, just you
Okay.
and Scott.
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll have a few more in just a few minutes.
Matthew's our guest speaker from Vicinity,
Good,
and he's going to share a presentation.
good, good. Well, Nate's not going to be with us. But I don't know of anybody else that's not. Look and see if I've heard from anybody else. Are we muted or not?
We are not. Yeah, we know. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I guess the only one you could be talking bad about is Scott, right? Hi, Scott.
Hi.
You're the only other commissioner here right now.
Quorum of one.
Make that a quorum of two. Hi, Marty.
Hi.
There we go. Good.
Oh, I must not. Oh, we get to see Carol.
I know it's kind of neat to see two people in the same room at the same time.
Do people do that now?
Sometimes people can do that. I was just downstairs in a hearing for the City Council Neighborhood Planning and Development Committee.
Oh, how did the thing go today?
Not well. It got punted down the pike another 2 weeks.
Oh. Well, maybe
So
I'll have,
anybody who missed out today can come again. But we ought to do that. Getting started.
You want to just go ahead and turn it over to Matthew to do his presentation and then come back to the minutes.
Yeah, Matthew, do you want to go ahead and start your presentation?
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, folks. It is so great to be with you all virtually. My name is Matt O'Malley. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Vicinity Energy. I'm based out of our Boston office, but Vicinity is in 13 different cities, including KC. Many of you know our giant plant on Grand Avenue. Want to also acknowledge I'm joined by my colleague, Jessica Rodriguez, who's with us as well. I had the incredible honor of meeting with some of you when some other colleagues and I were in town right before the holiday. Really excited about the work that you all are doing, the vision that this organization is doing on behalf of the city, and we are here as a willing partner. I will be completely candid with you. We are electrifying and decarbonizing our system. I think KC we thought was going to be a little bit further down on our timeline, and just after some really great conversations and some commitments and goals that you all are making, the city and the county are making, we're going to expedite that. So I am delighted. I have a presentation to share. Please interrupt me with questions as frequently as you want. I want this to be more of a conversation, and I'm happy to come back and talk as often as I can. I'm also planning on spending a lot more time in KC, so God willing, I will be able to do some of these in person. So having said that, I'm going to present this. Let me make sure I do it right. It's loading right now. Can everyone see the first screen, which is the title page? Great. Okay, so that's my title. That's the topic of our conversation today. And just going back, you should be able to see this screen as well. Yes, the new one that shows the timeline. Great. So this is just a brief overview on how district energy system has changed. And you could truly go back to the Roman aqueducts to talk about how this idea came to be. And it's essentially having a centralized plant that creates thermal energy, heat, and then through a series of underground pipes is able to transport that. It began by creating heat through coal in the early 1900s. The Grand Street plant actually opened in 1904. The Grand Avenue plant opened in 1904. Then as technology and understanding evolved, it switched to oil, then in natural gas in the 1990s. This has the year 2000 for CHP, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And then biogenic fuel is something that we're using in some other cities, including Philadelphia and Boston. And then the electrification of our system is currently underway. Now, the CHP was in around the year 2000 for some of our larger plants, but we did adopt it in Kansas City, I think in 2017 or 2018. So not that long ago, but it has been proven to be an incredibly effective way to create electricity, export it to the grid, and then capture what is known as waste heat to help create our steam to heat our buildings. In KC, we've been around for, this says 110 years. It's actually 119 years. We currently service 4 million square feet of commercial space in the downtown sort of city center area, including the T-Mobile Center, City Hall, KC Convention Center, Flash Cube Apartments, Lifted Spirits Distillery. We have a 6-mile underground network of pipe for our steam. We also have a 4-mile network for chilled water, which is something that we're able to help cool buildings in the summertime and warmer months as well. We have right now a cogen capacity of about 5 megawatts. That means we create about 5 megawatts of electricity, which we export for the grid. And because of that, we're able to create and capture waste heat, which allows us to see dramatic emissions. The way I always explain this to non-engineers, and I am a non-engineer, is that you think about you think about the engine of your car. After it runs for a while, it gets really, really hot. You can feel the heat over it. We've got, the equivalent of a jet engine at our plant, which creates the electricity, which is how we create and then capture the waste heat. We have a 99.99% reliability delivery record, something we're incredibly proud of. And we're committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or sooner. I added the or sooner to this slide as I was preparing for it because we're well underway, and we are confident and hopeful that we're going to set a really aggressive timeline and be able to get there. If you look at sort of the map of what our network is, again, it's primarily the downtown core. District energy is one of the many tools we should be looking for to decarbonize our buildings. It wouldn't be a good fit necessarily for smaller, less dense, less energy intensive buildings. We're great for hospitals, health centers, hotels, etc. The large, real energy intensive buildings that we can help heat and cool at a reasonable price and a less carbon intensity. Right now, we are significantly better in terms of our carbon intensity, lowering it, and our plan ahead is even going to address that. So the purpose of this talk, and again, please raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak up if you have questions, but I'll of course take questions at the end. There was a question in the chat. How soon are you going to be south of Bush Creek? I'm sorry, Molly, I don't know that answer, but one of the reasons why I've asked Jessica to join me is any question I can't answer, we will take down, and I will get back in touch with Laura to just feel free to so come away. I don't know the answer to that, but I will certainly get that answer for you. Moving right ahead, how do we electrify and what's our plan? Well, the first thing is that in most cities, buildings are the super emitters. When you think about the fact that we need to cut our emissions as a society, as we know, I think sometimes people often think it's planes or it's cars, transportation that can be the leading cause of emissions in municipalities. And that might be true in some smaller, more rural cities. But as we think about urban areas, it's buildings which create the most. In Boston, it's about 66% of all emissions come from our buildings. In Philadelphia, which is more dense, that number is even higher. It's above 70%. So if we want to be serious about attacking climate change and addressing the existential threat of our time, in my opinion, we need to be really aggressive, smart, nimble, and bold when it comes to looking at our buildings. So in an earlier slide, I talked about how the creation of steam has evolved through the years. Well, this is sort of the next cutting edge, industry leading process that we're doing, and it's a three-pronged approach. First part is installing electric boilers, getting off our old gas boilers. An electric boiler is more efficient, and again, you can through power purchase agreements, through other opportunities, you can make sure that you're not using fossil fuels to create that. We have ordered our first electric boiler for the city of Boston. It will be up and operational by either the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of next year. So within a year, we will see it up and operational. This works in most of, but not all of our sites, but certainly KC and Boston, is because, as I mentioned, we currently export electricity to the grid. So we've got an interconnect. So it allows us to access electricity at wholesale rates, for lack of a better word, at that interconnect rate. The second part is heat pump technology. Many of you are familiar with heat pump technology. It is the most efficient way, one of the most efficient ways that you can heat and cool buildings. Many homes have them. I put them in, my wife and I put them in our house this fall. I'm pleased to report that as the temperature got to -10 over the past weekend, they performed wonderfully. They work well. Most heat pumps that we know of are known as air source heat pumps. What we're looking at doing is looking at heat pumps that will extract energy from water. In most of our larger plants, including KC, in Boston and Philadelphia, we take water from the Charles River, the Schuylkill River, or the Missouri River. We would be running it over coils, lift energy from that, and use that as an incredibly efficient way to help create heat and steam as well. So the heat pump technology, which are used all over European cities, we will likely be among the first US cities or North American cities to implement that. This is a way that, following what's been done in Copenhagen or Glasgow or Malmo, Sweden, we're able to leverage waterways to help create heat and to help create steam. And then the third aspect, which is really exciting, is thermal storage. And we're talking about, in Boston at least, to initially try to get 1 gigawatt of thermal storage. And the reason why this is important is because in Boston specifically, I'm talking a lot about Boston, but I'll get to that in a minute, is because we are relying heavily on offshore wind for our renewable energy plan. And the wind blows the heaviest at night from 10 p.m. till about 2 a.m. is the heaviest time of wind. That's also the time that most people aren't using a lot of electricity. So the costs are usually down. In West Texas and some of these other things, people are actually getting paid for using renewables during that off-peak hours. This would allow us to access the wind at the time that there's the most of it with the least amount of use, and then shift the peak demand time to 6 a.m., which is our peak demand time. That's when we start heating our buildings before the humans arrive. So we're not talking about, with thermal storage, we're talking about molten salt or molten silica. We're talking about ways that we can just create the heat, save it, and then reuse it to create the steam. So this isn't like your typical cell phone battery or a battery in an EV which are constrained to larger space. This is something that will actually be done at a much, much smaller level. So E-Steam works. Again, we're leveraging electric transmission interconnects for wholesale market price renewable power. We can convert renewable power to steam through highly efficient technologies at scale, and we can leverage existing status as wholesale grid customer to access real-time energy. The power purchase agreements can be customer controlled, or we can help walk our customers through that. And we can use what's known as E-Steam, which is the product, to achieve their net zero goals at their own pace. We have a unique situation where we've got some old but very workable infrastructure, and we can adapt it with new technologies, which is precisely what we're doing to meet this moment. So before I joined Vicinity, I spent 11 years as a member of the Boston City Council in Boston, where I worked with our mayor, who was city councilor at the time, Michelle Wu, on passing a whole host of environmental initiatives, including what's known as BERDO, the Boston Emissions Reduction Disclosure Ordinance 2.0, because the first BERDO, which was the same acronym, slightly different definition, was all about benchmarking and reporting utility usage from large buildings. What BERDO 2.0 did, which we passed in the fall of 2021, was set these aggressive timelines for large-scale buildings, 20,000 square feet and above, to show reduction in their energy usage. Based on the type of building it was, based on the size, based on the usage, and what the plan is, what the alternative or what the compliance plan would look like. So beginning in 2025, you're going to see buildings that need to make significant dents. Now, some of these goals can be met with better insulation. Some of these goals can be met with better efficiencies, but a lot of them are going to change the way that they have heat and cool. Electrification is going to be the answer for many. Heat pumps will be the answer for many. And then some of our larger ones in our particularly our health and our hospitals and our lab spaces, they're going to need, that are on our district, they're going to have an opportunity to hit those carbon reduction goals through a, I won't say easy, because as you can see, nothing about this is easy, but a pretty straightforward manner. At the end of the day, we are changing how we create heat, and in some cases, in KC's case, cooling for certain buildings. We are agnostic on the fuel source. So by using renewables, by leveraging the green economy, by making sure that we're able to focus on new and energy efficient opportunities, we're able to meet these goals in a really clear way. So that's what the sort of... I never... I'm sorry, I heard you, but then you cut out. Maybe it wasn't meant for me. Well, anyway, that's a good segue to open it up to questions. I've talked long enough. I can tell you again, when we met with certain folks on this call about Kansas City's plan, and particularly an aggressive timeline that you all have for municipal buildings and county buildings, we service many of them. So by looking at what we can do in KC in terms of the timeline, I'm not going to say that we're going to be able to have a boiler and a heat pump up over the next 2 years. But we certainly could have it not too long after that. Certainly the electric boiler, at least, is something that we could potentially have up and operational in the next couple of years. So we're excited to partner. We want to hear feedback. We want you to kick the tires and make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. At the end of the day, we love our city. We love KC. We've been around for a long time, and we want to continue to be around for a long time. And we want to meet this moment both as a business and as a citizen of this planet to do the right thing. So, Scott, I see you have your hand up, please. The floor is yours.
Okay, hey, great. Yeah, that was great information there. Yeah, that the KC plant, you know, has been long been on my list of interesting sites around the city to know about. I got to actually tour that plant with an engineering group at one time, maybe 5 years ago. And another colleague here on the call, Molly, you can see her there. She's waving her hand.
Molly.
So when she asked about south of Brush Creek, right? You know, we have an informal work group around the research campuses there, and that's just across Brush Creek. Stowers, MRI Global, UMKC, Rockhurst. That we have had some early discussions with Scott Stortle there at the
Yeah.
at the plant. This is, and I don't even know if people are still there, but
No, Scott
anyway,
is-
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
to potentially look at some, are there any ideas for that part of the city that would make any sense, and how to connect you up with the right facilities people and so forth at our respective organizations. And you know, the time is potentially right for some of
Yeah.
that. It's hard to say, but so I like that. And then also then with what you're doing downtown, even you know, one of my things that we've talked about from time to time on the commission is a downtown microgrid, to increase resilience of the downtown KCMO buildings, police services, what kinds of things, you know, I don't know what makes sense there. And, you know, Andy certainly can speak more to any of those discussions that have happened internally at City Hall, but that's the kind of stuff that I like to see. This is really neat. I'm hoping that you can send us your slides afterwards as well.
Absolutely.
And I don't really have any other direct questions at the moment, other than just how to get acquainted like that, and maybe how to help make some connections there for you.
No, that's hugely helpful. Thank you. And I will email, who should it be the point person? Is it Laura to
Yeah,
email
you can send
the
it to
slides?
Laura or
Yep.
myself, either way.
Okay, yep, and you guys can disseminate to anyone
Yeah,
who wishes. In terms of the Brush Creek, that's great. I'm glad you've been in touch with Scott, and he's a dynamo. Yeah, we want to look at all opportunities because, you know, we're running a business, but we're also trying to help decarbonize cities, and those two things shouldn't be in conflict with one another. We're not going to be the answer for every place. Just some places it would be, you know, cost prohibitive for us to run a lateral out, or it wouldn't necessarily be able to deliver what the potential customer would want. But we want to support other opportunities like network geothermal, which can be used in neighborhoods, like having microgrid set up. So we're all in for being better partners. As I said, my background's in government, and you know, part of my charge, in addition to the sustainability, is civic outreach and community engagement. So we wanna be great neighbors here. So I appreciate your comments. And Molly, do you have the floor is yours. Are you muted?
Whoops, you're on mute, Molly.
Sorry. I just wanted to give an update on that Volker Energy Hub that Scott and I were doing pre-pandemic. Just a week ago, I ran into Jeremy Knowles, and they're working just north of Brush Creek with the Nelson and potentially the Kaufman and Discovery Center and the surrounding neighborhoods. So we're trying to talk about joining north and south of Brush Creek, and that is a much bigger footprint with major institutions.
No, that's great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Although major in that they consume majorly, but they don't have any money.
Well, again, you know, I think there's also an opportunity, and I don't want to derail the conversation, but when we think about, you know, federal opportunities, other private-public partnerships, they're often, you know, you're seeing more and more municipalities, counties, states prioritize the need for investing in resiliency. So there could always be a potential win-win there.
When you say you've been around for a long time, I apologize. I've been having tech issues, so I was late. Is Vicinity used to be Veolia? Used to be?
That's right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. So I should have clarified on that, because the plant's been around for 119 years. Vicinity as a company has been around for 3 years. Before that, we were part of Veolia. Veolia wanted to sell off their district energy assets, and the former so that's how we came about. So as a company, we're relatively new, but old plant.
Thank you. Is it possible to get tours?
Absolutely. I will, you know, yes, there is. And we actually talked when I met with some folks back in December, we talked about getting an on-site tour. So we'll get something probably closer to the spring, to be honest. I don't know that I'll be going down before April or May, but we'll do something soon.
Awesome.
No, that sounds neat.
Any other questions, thoughts, pushback?
Andy, is the city looking to expand onto this network?
Not that I'm aware of.
But most of the big buildings are covered.
Yeah, we're already at City Hall, the municipal court, and the police headquarters are already on there, as well as what Matt had mentioned, the convention centers, T-Mobile Center, so many of our larger structures here downtown are already on there.
Well, perhaps if there's a new stadium being built downtown, they should have to pay to run the line all the way down to UMKC.
So, hey, so Andy, when you say those buildings are on, is that on for the district heating and cooling or for the electricity or both?
It's for heating and cooling the district.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't send electricity to specific buildings. We export it to the grid.
Okay.
But the city and the county, I think the city's our biggest customer in KC and the county's our second, or I might have that backwards.
So, yeah, so I'll express my ignorance here about how a downtown microgrid would work then. Like if there was a grid blackout from, the major part of the grid, like Hawthorne or the other plants, how would Vicinity's energy supply, still feed or not feed and that sort of thing? Because, what some of the papers that we've done at my work, this is 3 or 4 years ago, was looking at like Northeast Coast, Hurricane Sandy, some of the areas that had microgrids around Princeton University, things that when the main part of the grid went down because of storms and maybe these things are related to climate events that may intensify in the future, who knows? But, if you want to build resilience, you do those kinds of things. And I got to admit, I don't know how much more to say about it than that, but that's about my limit. Do you have partners that maybe look at microgrid design and to team with for looking at projects like that, or how would you anything go forward?
None that I know of, and there could be conversations sort of happening, and we'd certainly be open to them. Again, the reason why we're unique, District Energy is unique, is that our typical competitor, it's not like the gas company or an electric company that you could have close competition. There's no place in the planet where there are two rival district energy systems in the same, footprint. It just wouldn't make sense. So we're always looking for sharing best practices, learning more. In terms of reliability, we have a backup of oil if need be, could be natural gas. The reason why the electrification is so attractive is because, we have backups currently because we service a lot of hospitals, health centers. We need to be able to guarantee that 99.99 reliability. The reason why the electrification, our plan, I think, is realistic, is that we're really relying heavily on thermal storage as well. That would help us in the event of some grid disruption to be able to still deliver. And I mention that is because, skeptics will say, we'd love to electrify our building. We'd love to show more resiliency, but A, it's too expensive, and B, it's not as reliable, and they would conjure up, misinformation about rolling blackouts, etc. I always want to be sensitive to that, to say, we take that head on, and the cost associated with it, through on-site renewables, through power purchase agreements, and through having that direct connection to the grid, which would allow us wholesale energy prices, electricity prices, we can be cost competitive. And in terms of reliability standpoint, we're going to invest heavily on thermal storage. This is heat. This isn't electricity. This is something that we don't need a lithium battery. We need thermal storage, which is a lot less expensive and a lot more powerful. It's 10x, or, the storage capability of a lithium ion battery. So those are, two things that we are very upfront about. But it's an excellent point, because it's it's an evolving field, and we are, you know, we're not patent number one. The good news is that we're looking to Europe, which is really ahead of us on a lot of this stuff, particularly around district energy. Our heat pump complex is being designed in Germany. Our electric boiler is being, you know, built in America, but we're relying heavily on what's been done in some great European cities as well. Molly asks, has the health department been added to our district, our steam loop? Andy may know that. I don't know if the health
Yeah.
department.
No, our health department is not part of the steam loop. It's too far out. And there's some conversations about whether, you know, they're going to do upgrades there. We're working with some ESCOs, possibly looking at the health department. But then there's also a question about whether we're going to keep at that building or go to a different location. There's some conversations about that as well. So we'll just kind of keep you posted on that.
Right. Rachel, do you have a question?
I think Molly's still muted. I can see her speaking.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Matt. I'm Rachel. I work in OAKIA with Andy and Laura. I was wondering, you were talking about the lifting, using the water for heat lifting. Once the water is used for that process, is it still like usable, or does it need to go through any type of special treatment process or anything?
Yes, and to be clear, we would obviously go through, you know, it's not as though we would just take the water. We'd abide by every rule and law and cleaning and you know, every government oversight that we have. We've done this before. The way it works, at least in both, you know, Boston and Philly right now, is we have a water intake permit, which means the water we use, we clean it, we create steam with it. In some aspects, we have what's known as a condensate maximizer. So that's actually even more efficient. That's why our efficiency rate goes up. We create the steam. It's really, really hot. We take that condensate to create more steam. So it goes through a reverse osmosis or an RO process, which keeps it, you know, I don't think you could call it potable, but it's pretty darn close, and it's cleaner, and it removes anything before it's exported back, or it's either, you know, sent back to the river. Cleaner, cooler in some cases, which is actually waterways as a result of global warming, as you know, are getting hotter. So it actually, we're talking about, you know, a 5 to 7 degree dip, which is actually healthier for the marine life, or it would go to other usage. I think with the chilled water loop that we have in KC, that could be another way that we could reuse it, but I'm not entirely sure how we would approach it down there, but that's what we've done in some of the other districts.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I know you all have a packed agenda, and you have a big game coming up this weekend, so I won't stay on. Happy to answer more questions. That's my cell phone and my email. Honestly, stay in touch, and I will likely be down in your beautiful city in a couple months. We will definitely get a tour organized, and happy to meet with more folks in any way I can be helpful to, you know, you all. It'd be my honor to do so.
Thank you, Matthew. This is Andy. Just when you do come to town and you give us a date for the tours, let me know, and we'll get this out to the commission.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you all. Thanks so much. Take care now.
I can drive?
You can drive.
I'm here at City Hall because there was a hearing earlier today, and so I was here at 4 o'clock. Let's go back and take a look at the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from our last meeting?
To pull them up.
I'm not hearing any. If there are no additions or corrections, can I have a motion for them to be approved as drafted? Thank you, Molly. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Scott. There's just 4 of us here, which sadly 4 is a quorum these days. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, there we go. All right, let's move on. Let's do an EMC appointments update next. We haven't had any action that I know of since our last meeting, but the Sierra Club has supported our predicament, and perhaps they would like to make some comment as to how that's gone. Is Don on our? Thank you, Don.
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Thank you, Carol. I think you got a copy of the letter we got back from the mayor this morning, and it was a quick response to the email we sent yesterday, just basically saying, outlining the issue here and that he needs to make more appointments. And he kind of threw it back. I mean, he put the burden back on us, saying, well, let us know some names. And I think it sounds like a good opportunity to strike. So I was quite surprised to see the quick response to that email.
Well, as it turns out, we have some names. And so what we can do is all of us who have come up with names can contact the various people that we've been talking to about applying, and ask to see if we can submit those things. So I think we can respond to that fairly quickly.
Yes, and you were copied on that email, so he knows, and so basically he's addressing you as well, Carol. So
Okay,
yeah, glad
okay, yeah.
you take the
Well,
initiative. So
we have, just so that everyone knows, we have sent this list of names, a list of names, more than once historically already. So we'll just do it again.
okay. And we'll be happy to send another letter to remind the mayor of his promise then. So
okay, thank you.
yeah,
Well,
thank
I think that's all we can do is just kind of stay after it.
Mhm.
And I do appreciate your support.
Absolutely.
The reason I'm still at City Hall is there was a hearing on the tree preservation ordinance, and they've been working really hard on this for about 3 years, and there are sticking points with the developers because there are potentially some costs associated with preserving trees. But they've decided to postpone it 2 weeks and see if they can come to some agreement. What I suspect will happen is there will be some concessions, but it won't be enough for the developers, and we'll be right back here in 2 weeks needing to advocate for a slightly watered down version of what we were advocating for today. One of the things that I think is the most important about the ordinance that they've proposed is that they're wanting to have the tree situation assessed before they get a permit for any site improvements. So instead of the current situation where a person could come in and get a permit for a soil disturbance and basically mow down everything on the site before there's any development plan. This would require some plan to address any stands of trees before there's a permit to clear the site. So it creates the possibility of preserving forest that we haven't really had before. And I think that if we get that in and of itself will be valuable. That makes sense?
Yeah.
How was the turnout?
It was okay. I mean, it really was okay. But the arguments that the developers make are that, they just can't afford to do another thing. and that most of their arguments are about what it would cost if they had a fully forested site and they were required to mitigate. They couldn't save any of the forest. They didn't have any offsets. They didn't have any landscaping that would offset it. And that would cost so much money and it would be prohibitive. And, you know, you can take it to the extreme and make it look like that. The point is, we're not asking them to replace everything that's there right now. They're asking them to at least preserve 35%. Or if they can't preserve 35%, including, which they can count everything that's in a stream buffer, everything that's in a landscape plan, everything that's part of street tree planting, everything that they're doing gets to count in that 35%. If they can't get to the 35% threshold of what was already there, so unless their site was totally forested, they're not going to have a site that was 100% forested. They're going to have a site that had, you know, a few clumps of trees on different acres, but not the entire site. It's just the examples are extremes. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, they have a threshold that's 1 acre is basically where the threshold is for this particular ordinance. It is disturbing to hear that the energy code comes up, and these are what the developers are using to counter the kinds of things we're trying to do here with this particular tree preservation ordinance, is that this is just another cost on the developers. And of course, you know, we're already losing the Northland councilman because, you know, they claim, you know, business is booming in the Northland, and this is just another way we're going to drive investment out from the Northland. So it's going to be a struggle, you know, a lot of these types of activities that we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, and actually what's happening in the Northland is they're coming in, they're getting a permit to clear the site without any consideration for what's on the site as far as vegetation goes. They're clearing it, and then after they've got it, it's really pretty brutal clearing too. They just go in with machinery and snap off all the trees. Then they come back with their development plan. So by that time, the trees are gone. They're dead. And so just stopping that and getting them to take a look at the trees before they do that would be a huge benefit. But it is, I'm going to let Andy go since we're having this particular discussion. I'm going to let Andy tell you how the energy code hearing at
Well,
the
before you
state
go
went.
there, what is the council? Where are they? Why do the council want to let them do that rather than save the trees? What is the motivation for the council?
The argument that was being made, for one thing, the mayor is sponsoring this tree preservation ordinance at this point, which is a plus. It's not this thing that's just got no support whatsoever. And the argument is coming from people, mostly in the Northland, I would say, that it's going to slow down development, and that development is, I would say, basically a positive, that the cheaper you can develop, the better it is. And I think that all we're asking is that they develop with a different value system.
Yeah.
And that they consider some of these other attributes at the time that they're doing the development and do what they can to make the development as compatible with the natural landscape and with the energy efficiency objectives and with the long-term use and utility of the land as possible. And it's a difference of opinion on what's reasonable. It's also a kind of a difference of opinion on what time frame matters, because the community that does the building and selling of real estate has a different time frame than the community of people that own it and live in it and pay the utilities and live and work in the area for the next 50 to 100 years. And there's a time frame perspective as well as a monetary perspective.
Well, why is why is development important? I don't think it's important, not when you consider the life of my grandchildren.
No, certainly. Marty, today, if you'd watched the committee meeting, you know, what the council members on the committee are concerned about is economic development. You know, they're looking at the millions of dollars that these developments, whether they're data centers or whatever they may be, brings to Kansas City. You know, and how this type of ordinance would jeopardize those types of projects into the future. So, you know, this is a committee, this is not all of council. And, you know, the other thing I would say that I noticed about this was kind of, even though this has been going on for 2 years behind the scenes, the work that's been done on this, it seems to me they literally just got out of the planning commission yesterday with their approval on this. And there were even questions within the commission on that were still unresolved. So today it appeared in front of this committee, council committee, and this was sort of almost the first time I think that a lot of them had seen this ordinance, and it's not super simple. I mean, there are some complexities to this, especially about, you know, what are the offsets, you know, whether it's the stream setback ordinance or the other options. And I think council had a lot of these questions, and staff struggled through the presentation, and the experts that should have been there didn't show up until later. And so it wasn't the best presentation, I would say, that I've seen. And I think the next 2 weeks will be critical for staff to educate and refine, you know, how does this ordinance really work? Especially if you can't put trees back, then the in lieu of dollars that are being suggested to go into the tree fund, there's some question that the law department needs to answer, and they have not responded yet to it. And that is whether it's legal for us to even collect those dollars versus going to the public for a vote on a tax, or whether it's an impact fee. So there's still questions being answered that I'm really kind of surprised haven't already been addressed, and or more work had been done with council before coming in front of the committee. So that's my take on what I saw today.
So it'll be back. It'll be back in a couple of weeks, and it'll need support. It'll need support. Okay, I am going to let you talk about the energy code now.
More good news. All right, so first off, I'll just say, I mean, many of you know that at the state level, Senate House Bill 580 was introduced several weeks ago, which was basically just to generalize this. It was a way that the state is looking to basically, what's the word here?
Override.
Yes. The city's energy code, which many of you know, we've of course passed the 2021 IECC. And so this is the state's attempt at trying to supersede that, or override that, and roll it back to something in the order of a 2009 code. I appreciate there were several of you that had joined me in Jeff City last week to testify in front of the House committee. And let's just say it was a little discouraging from my experience just being there. You know, I kind of sort of joke with folks when I tell people, when I was sitting there in front of the committee, and the strategy was for the city to kind of testify first and then have our supporting partners kind of testify after me. But to be honest with you, you know, introducing myself as the chief environmental officer for the city in Jeff City, it was not well received. You know, I was not met with a lot of hospitality, let's just say. But a lot of their questions were about affordability, and they want to build houses as cheaply as possible, and they see the energy code as nothing more than driving up the costs of those homes. My comments were really built around looking at the cost of affordability to include the cost of energy, heating and cooling, the long-term costs. That didn't matter. They're looking at the initial cost of construction and what those costs are. And the numbers they were throwing around were inflated. Of course, we're throwing back numbers that are counter that. But at the end of the day, hey, Billy was there with me in Jeff City. So, and I'd be happy to open it up for Billy to offer his take on what happened last week. But essentially, we provided our testimony, and I do appreciate, I noticed looking through the testimony that was submitted, there were hundreds of comments that were submitted, and I recognize many names here locally and appreciate that. So, where we are with this is that the committee did meet today. There was no movement on that particular bill. It's going to go again next week. They'll discuss it further and see if the committee wants to make a vote on it. So we're just kind of following this day by day, see where this is. The strategy that's being kind of proposed in terms from our lobbyist is that the fight really will probably happen on the Senate side, not so much on the House side. It seems like they'd already sort of made up their mind. And so we'll see when it gets over to the other side of the Senate there that we'll meet with the senators. We'll kind of work on a delegation there. We'll see if we can kind of have a little bit better influence on that side and try to steer this off, because there's so many different arguments you can make, whether this is bad for homeowners or energy burden issues, but also just talking about how this affects so many cities and various counties across the state. And I just don't know that they really contemplated what they were doing when they put this bill together, that it actually rolls back further back than where we were originally, so more to come on this. But Billy, you got any comments you want to throw in there about how it went? Sure. Yeah, you were there with me. I appreciated you guys being there. So.
Jeez, I'm honored. Thank you all, Madam Chair, everybody, Billy Davies, 6th District resident and Sierra Club, Missouri chapter. It was and just applaud all the work that the city did to rapidly respond. I know a lot of folks in this room, especially in the staff of OEQ, and just, putting in hours and hours to get ready. First for a meeting that got rescheduled, and then making the trip to Jefferson City, and spreading the word. And also we've been taking a look at all the comments, and just appreciate everybody for spreading the word and engaging. Just one of the things that was also apparent, Andy covered it all really well. Some of the interesting points made by some members of the committee, who repeatedly use the refrain, government is the problem, and the government are trying to rein in government, and also going on and on talking about Dillon's rule, despite we were being in a home rule state. It was curious that there seemed, outside of Kansas City and St. Louis, which have been paying attention to this a lot, I think there was a dearth of representation from other jurisdictions. As Amy mentioned, there's over 100 jurisdictions that this would impact, that have codes that are better than energy codes that are better than what this would allow, and that would be rolled back. So a lot of folks are trying to reach out. We're trying to reach out to other jurisdictions, many in the Kansas City area, but and I'm happy to share some resources. That's one of the lists of jurisdictions in case folks want to make contact. Really just try, while, appreciate the candor that Andy has in sharing kind of the city's next steps and working on the Senate, trying to get as many folks who may not have even heard about this yet, because again, it did come up pretty suddenly, trying to give them the opportunity to continue engaging with legislators, both in the Senate but also even on this House committee, because it does seem to be the stated goals of this committee and some of the members just don't seem to be congruent with just the facts here, what this actually would do, how this would impact their constituents. And then just another thing just would add is we learned that the rules for the state legislature, the House chambers, apparently they're limiting the amount of bills that can be recommended out of committee. So what that could imply is that, like last year, when there was the gas ban that was passed, it wasn't passed as a single standalone bill. It was rolled into a kind of omnibus package of all things related to energy. Some folks who are lobbyists and know better, more informed than I am, have suggested this would likely be the same thing. So this wouldn't be a standalone bill. It'll be rolled into a larger package. And so what that could mean is it would, if it's lumped together with other issues that might impact utilities, cooperatives, energy efficiency folks, EV producing, all various folks across the energy space, could create opportunities for, just alliances and just something for the city to be mindful of, and all of us. But I know there's a lot more work to be done. We're still, trying to turn folks out. A lot of folks are doing lobby days in the spring, but we'll make sure to keep OEQ and everybody at City Hall posted on anything that we hear, and appreciate the same, and watching that docket very closely. And if anybody wants to make a phone call to some of the legislators, we welcome it. But thank you again for all of y'all's leadership on this.
I wonder about if this could be, it's the language. What is the language that people are attached to? You understand what I'm saying? That it seems like growth is supposed to be good. And it's good for a little baby because they need to grow up. And so, but it seems to me that development is why we're in an extinction crisis. Development itself, development of agriculture, development of cities, development of highways, development of hard spaces that eliminate green plants. Somehow we need to redo the language so that it's talking about death instead of life. I mean, it really is, I mean, a tree provides oxygen. Cutting down a tree steals oxygen. I mean, I don't know what the language, I don't know how to do it. I'm just bringing that up as a potential. Maybe we need to go to the English classes or the literature classes and have people work on the language to create a language that has sanity in it. This stuff does not have sanity in it. They're shooting people they're shooting themselves in the foot or the head, more like the head. And I don't know where to go with that, but I think it's an avenue that we should explore in some way. I'm done.
Well, I would agree with Marty that we do need to be really cognizant of how we communicate, and we can probably learn to do it better. No question about it, that we can be more effective. And I know there are people that have worked hard on that. And so maybe I can find some resources that we can share that would help us. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Andy to do the OEQ report.
Okay. Molly, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the developer community. I really think we need to engage them. If they're the main pushback on a lot of things, on the electrics, on the trees, we really have to engage them, and it might not be successful, but I think we have to continue to try and engage this group. And maybe it's not a group, maybe you do it one at a time. I'm not sure how we engage them.
Sure. And Molly, just on the tree preservation, the city planning folks and the group that's been working on the ordinance did connect with the developers, Hunt Midwest and others. So they've been working together for several weeks, and that's basically how a lot of the concessions were written into the revised ordinance. So it's watered down from where it originally started back a year ago. But no, I totally agree with you. I mean, we do need to engage with those folks. We tried to do that on the energy code. And, we obviously, there are times you just couldn't agree on things. And the same thing's happening on the tree preservation. There's just some points that we just can't seem to find common ground on.
Well, I'm on the Lewis White Real Estate Board at UMKC, and all the other board members are J.E. Dunn and all the big developers. So I'm continuing to push this conversation there, and I'm doing these field trips. So we're taking the real estate students and the development students down to Second in Baltimore, and I'd love to take them to the energy plant, all to keep this conversation going. I was just wondering if there was a way to host talks with them or invite them to I don't know. I just think we ought to engage them. I'm done. The Lorax and I are done.
Okay. All right. So on the OAQ report, it won't be too long. It's fairly brief today. We'll just kind of start off. We've been on our benchmarking program. So Reagan's been working hard on that. I just got done reviewing the latest annual report for that, so looking pretty good. We'll have that ready to go for distribution probably within the next few weeks. If the EMC is at all interested, I think we're going to be doing a presentation for the Climate Protection Steering Committee down the road, but I'm certainly happy to share that with EMC as well if that's a report out that you would like to hear. So always kind of interesting to hear what that benchmarking kind of looks like and what we're learning from running that program. So anyways, I'll kind of save that for later, but just to give you a heads up that report is coming out soon. And Reagan's being new is now beginning to get calls for the new reporting year. So she'll be working with the clients, we'll say, and there'll be a learning experience there as well. So yeah, there you go, Ray. That's the attitude. So anyways, so that's moving forward. Kelly, as you met a couple of months ago, has been diligently working on our composting program here in City Hall, so that we can kind of refine that as a model that we can roll out in other city facilities. I would like to say that has been progressing smoothly, but as in anything in city government, there's been some hiccups and bumps along the way. So Kelly, if you're paying attention here, if you're on here, yeah, anything you want to say regarding how it's going?
We just had a really productive meeting today that I'm really excited about because we just came to some conclusions. We nailed down communication, bin pickup. We're getting closer to selecting the bins. We got in the weeds about how the actual facility maintenance staff or housekeeping staff will literally be picking up the compost. And we got in the weeds that it's heavy and it's messy and we got to clean the bins. And there are a lot more details in this initiative than I think anyone ever realized, but we're getting closer and a lot of people are involved and I feel a little bit more optimistic. It's happening no matter what. I just want it to be flawless and successful and yeah, I want it to be a good rollout and I want everyone to be excited about it. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
So tomorrow, the city manager is releasing and presenting the budget for the next fiscal year to council in the business session. So if you want to watch that, I'll be on channel 2. I believe it's at 2 o'clock. I'll have to double check. It's either 2 or 3. I'm not sure, but I think it's 2. But anyhow, there are for OEQ for us, what we've asked for in the budget, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We've asked for 2 positions to help support our implementation of the Climate Protection Resilience Plan. So besides 2 positions, we're asking for some additional funds as well. So if you are able to attend any of the budget hearings, which they have posted a schedule for those are on the city's website. Certainly encourage you to pop in on any of those. Some are virtual and some are in person, so certainly feel free to do that. And in years past, you've always we've had some really good strong support for OEQ and the work that we do. So fortunately, there has been no suggestion of us being moved or anything of that nature. In essence, it's just a request for additional positions. So any testimony there would be certainly appreciated that supports the city's work in climate. And it's not just us, it's also there's going to be money in there for additional tree plantings. The goal for the city is like 10,000 trees in the next 3 years. So there's other initiatives related to the Climate Protection Resiliency Plan that you can support as well in your testimony in support of the budget. So let's see. Regarding dollars, since I'm already on that topic, we in the office here, Laura has been doing a great job of trying to work with the mayor's office and others throughout the city organization on looking for dollars. We all have heard all the various grant opportunities, whether it's through the infrastructure bill and or through the IRA. So we are always we're still monitoring those opportunities. We do have some irons in the fire in that regard. I'm not really going to go into any details on those yet because they're still preliminary, but just letting folks know that we're certainly looking for opportunities to support our nonprofits and other organizations that might want to take the lead, but that want the city's support, and that's what we're hoping to do because we do not have enough staff here to take the lead on all these grant opportunities, but anywhere where we can support and or partner or whatever, we're all for that. And we're doing that in-house as well as some of our external partners. So just letting you know that that's continuously going on behind the scenes and is really occupying a pretty good chunk of our time. The solar at the airport project, just to let you know, of course, the airport new terminal opens up at the end of the month. So we're pretty excited about that. And then the RFP is due this month as well for the solar array. So it'll be interesting. We'll get that in. I'm not sure how long we'll take to review those proposals, but it's a phased project. We'll see what we get. We've got NREL supporting us technically on those proposals. So I'm kind of excited to see what's going to be offered. So I'll keep you posted as I can share information with the commission here. Related to solar, of course, the Solarize KC, we're in a phase now where we're working on trying to focus on the low-income homes. So we are starting to look at the applicants that have applied under that program, and we'll start hopefully to kind of select those applicants that meet our requirements and hopefully start bringing some solar installations to their homeowners. So looking forward to seeing that in the next month or two. But work is progressing on that as well. Okay, I think that's the gist of what I want to cover, unless there's some specific questions about anything that we might be working on that I haven't covered. Molly?
Always count on my having questions. The Kelly is, who's working on the energy benchmarking? Reagan's working on the energy benchmarking. Are we still doing the friendly, those who are, benchmarking versus going to the point where we are finding people who are not, or groups that have big buildings that are not?
So we are not at a in a position where we are strong in enforcement on that, I would say. We've looked at that, and we met with our legal team and tried to, because when the original ordinance was put together, they didn't really draft in a really good, strong enforcement mechanism for it. And so I think what we've kind of discovered with discussions is that we're going to have to catch that when we build out the building performance standards program, the BPS program, where we can really have more teeth, and that'll benchmarking will feed into BPS, so they'll be linked together, but it'll be more important on the enforcement side at that time. To kind of go back to try to fix the benchmarking enforcement part, it's too complicated to try to go back and fix it at this point. So we're trying to just work with the regulated community as best as we can. We've got Metropolitan Energy Center that is supporting us as a call center as well. So, and they're trying to reach out as well and try to find as many folks out there that we can actually get to voluntarily comply with the ordinance as possible. And with Reagan, she may have some new ideas on how to do that as well. So we'll see where we go with this.
I was just going to suggest that Reagan might want to send an email to my institution. It doesn't hurt to ask them every year. And by the time the penalty phase comes around, we'd better be really good friends with the developers. And I was just wondering from Kelly about the composting, that when that program is perfect, as she says she's aiming for, would she be willing to come out and do demonstrations for other businesses, institutions, things like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I am always here to help institutions work towards our climate protection resiliency plan objectives. And I feel like after this, I'll have some tips and tricks and things to consider to, create that initiative in any building. So I really would love to share those tips and tricks. Molly, that'd be great.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And my apologies for not being on camera. I'm not able to right now. So please excuse me for that.
Okay. Thank you all so very much for all this great work. I'm done now.
I don't know that we have any liaison reports, do we? I don't believe we do. The Air Quality Forum isn't meeting until next week, and I don't know of any old business. We do have a little new business, and that is that the commissioners should have received conflict of interest forms from the city clerk's office. Those need to be returned by May 1st, I think. And so if you would attend to that, and we'll do reminders of that every month between now and then. Do we have remarks from visitors or from commissioners? Marty, your hand's up.
Yes, the yard code. Where is that?
So Marty, I've got a rough draft of that, but I'm not quite ready to share it yet. We were kind of as my discussions were with neighborhoods on this, we are waiting to see how this tree preservation ordinance plays out. We didn't want to muddy the waters with the nuisance code on this either. Okay. So we've got a little time, but I'm going to be sending a draft of that to the committee that helped put those ideas together for me. So you'll be seeing a draft of that probably before too long.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Anyone else?
Well, I'll go again.
Okay.
I'm doing a biochar burn at the Farmers and Friends at Cultivate Kansas City this Saturday. That's all.
Billy?
Thank you all again. Billy Davies, he, him from 6th District, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak again and earlier to share an update on folks' experience in Jefferson City. Was going to mention that in the comments and just express appreciation again. But wanted to note just an observation, and as we're looking ahead to the 2023 and beyond, and getting into excuse me, the first full year of Kansas City's implementation of its bold and ambitious and necessary climate protection and resilience plan. As I'm sure was reported on, and I think I saw it on the agenda, I missed it. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about the tree preservation ordinance, and I'm sure discussion about today's neighborhood meeting and yesterday's city planning commission meeting, where, you know, unfortunately, once again, there was a lot of, you know, almost call it gaslighting, but seemingly the last minute, after many months and years essentially of discussion and stakeholder engagement, negotiating and refining of what is a really a great, you know, and apparently modest ordinance to fulfill a pretty big item in the Kansas City Climate Protection and Resiliency Plan. You had kind of this, like, the sky is falling and a lot of efforts to stop it at the last minute. And that was nearly successful, you know, if not for the great advocacy by some folks present here, and, you know, folks who set the record about, like, kind of laying the groundwork for why this tree ordinance is important. Some folks opposed to it seem to paint it as some sort of last minute, unnecessary, radical thing that didn't exist before and is just going to change the way we do things in Kansas City for the worse. And this comes up a lot. This came up, you know, the energy code ordinance was passed in Kansas City, and it comes up in issues related to affordable housing, transportation, like all sorts of things. It's kind of like get back to basics. Don't go beyond. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Like, we don't need to do this. This is just too much, too fast. Hold your horses. What's going on here? And I think, you know, it would have been, if only, and some folks in decision-making seats seem to be curious about these statements. It seems to give them pause, and so makes me wonder what it could have been like if some of these had more, if there's more opportunity for the EMC to have a voice in these matters. And sorry, I've tried to be briefer. I'm curious. I know there are a lot of other commissions that do kind of get a formal say in big decisions, you know, just like related to TIFs, or, you know, kind of getting a chance to review big plans that go forward. And this committee has, as commission has, and has, but I think a lot of that is really in large part thanks to the staff and making sure it gets here. And just the great extra work by the commission. And so we're wondering about how can that be incorporated into processes, especially as a big purpose of the climate plan is to be something that officially informs all city policy making. And so interested in that going forward as a possibility to have discussions either as the commission and other aspects, elements of the city and other stakeholders. But I know I've gone way over time, but something that I think merits discussion, and I think it helped inform a lot of the city discussions happening in various departments this year. Thank you for your time again.
I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. Billy, I was going to ask you, I think Marty asked this too. What was the response of City Council? I mean, are they listening to this? They've been involved with this for a while. It's not like this is the first time they're hearing about, you know, things from the climate action and.
You know, and not to try not to cast a shadow on or any kind of light on council members, and encourage folks to take a look at the recording. You know, there questions about, like, who was involved in the process, how often, which stakeholders specifically, please count them, were involved in the decision-making process or in the discussions, how many have happened, with the code, that kind of has the code, you know, how does this relate to commercial buildings, and just like, you know, just it gave folks pause, and so now, as I'm sorry if I'm repeating what's been said, but it's held for 2 weeks, possibly longer. They said 2 weeks because they're pretty sure the Kansas City football team is going to win the Super Bowl. I'm sure everybody's excited about, yeah, there will be more. There's going to be more negotiation. It appears. So we will see how that pans out.
Should people continue to write in and things like that? Is there time to gather data? You know, that.
No, absolutely. You've got 2 weeks to still submit testimony. Just send an email to the clerk's office.
Okay.
Yeah. And just this kind of, there was a resolution that was also proposed. I didn't have a chance to watch the committee meeting, but resolution 230126 was on community engagement. So that's kind of been the theme I've been hearing here today. But Robinson proposed this, and this was kind of an outcome, I think, of what, the bike lanes on Truman Road. Some of you may have heard the stories about how that's been going. And Councilwoman Robinson had some concerns about how well the city engaged the community before they put those bike lanes in. So there's a resolution that's proposing some policies, procedural things going forward, particularly on infrastructure projects. So something for us to consider. I asked Kelly to kind of monitor that for us, and as that comes out with more details, we'll share that.
I think Billy's point about having the commission sort of have more teeth and input early on to the city. We struggled with that when we redid the mission statement a couple of years ago, because it was originally in there kind of like a planning department where you look at things and you give it a stamp of approval. And that's not what we have done, and nor, to my knowledge, have we been invited to do that really by the city.
That's correct. That's correct. Back when the EMC was first created, the model for environmental participation was you do an EIS, an environmental impact statement, and it sort of was a way to stop things closer to the end, as opposed to a way to influence the way things are done from the beginning. And there was a lot of resistance to having another governing group that could put the brakes on anything at the city. And so the EMC never really had that
kind of power.
But we also came to understand that if we were involved early on, that was really more constructive. The problem with that is we have to be invited to be engaged early on. We have to have introductions by the people who are putting together the steering committees or the advisory groups or the study groups. And we have had that in the past. And we have had commissioners that have served on the groups that did the zoning and subdivision regulations, and the groups that did the wet weather community panel, and all of the different things that we've done. The focus plan had a lot of environmental impact. We have environmental representation on transportation committees and things. But we have not had that in the current administration. And part of this not getting the appointments and not getting the cross appointments, and those things matter. And I don't think we give up on it. I think we just need to stay after it.
Okay. All right.
You're right.
Is there a group like the Air Quality Forum or the Wet Weather Commission? Is there a commission that looks at the whole of Kansas City infrastructure? Because there's development and then there's transportation. And is there somebody who's looking at it from a whole ecosystem perspective, other than the planning department?
I would not say there's an independent group that does that.
Because that would be a group that could look at Kansas City 50 years from now and 20 years from now and be making, recommendations that these other things plug into.
That's excellent.
But
Well, one thing, we were talking a little bit about the stakeholders in the tree ordinance. And the people that you're hearing from in these negotiations are the city staff that's trying to represent the policies that the city has adopted and the plans that the city has approved, and the developers, but there is not really a contingent of future residents or even existing residents that are sitting at that same table. And I don't know how you identify and engage those people, but they are not at the table.
right, they're certainly not at the table when there are discussions about a downtown ballpark or big infrastructure things.
Yeah. I wish that the environment got half the publicity that the Chiefs get.
Well, if they win the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure they're going to buy a whole bunch of trees
I bet.
and offer to plant them as well.
Oh, I bet they will.
Well, the sports metaphor can go on forever, right? Can go on forever.
Yeah, it's the training ground for capitalism.
But I do think back to the very beginning of the meeting when Marty was saying we need to find a better way to communicate why what we do is important. And we need to do it in a way that's constructive and compelling. And I think that we don't do it well enough.
And to a broad once that wonderful message is honed.
I'm sorry, Molly, I didn't hear everything you said.
I was just saying, once that wonderful message has been honed, we need to also provide it to a broader range of audiences.
Yep. Comes down to education.
Yeah.
People with the money have they can buy the commercials and the lobbyists and the.
Was Bridging the Gap at the?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay, I assumed that they're one of the major drivers behind this.
Well, and they have they're contributing a lot of the expertise as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any
All right.
other comment or suggestion? We will keep you posted then.
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank you came.
Yeah. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good to see you. Marty, I'll see you Saturday.
Oh, good. All
I'm
right.
excited. All right. I'll give you a hug.
All right. I love it.
Or I should ask for one.
Well, either way, it's a mutual thing.
Free hugs. Okay.
All right.
See you Saturday. Can't wait.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye.